So if you're watching this, you've made the terrible mistake of offering to help me with scanning. So I'm just going to go over my kind of my whole process on scanning a magazine. I'm going to go ahead and do an A3 sized one, even though that's probably not what you'll be sent to scan because those A3 scanners are pretty pricey. But I figured I might as well cover it while I'm here. And a lot of the same principles apply to it, so might as well. Anyway, so first thing off, what I'm going to go over today is I'm going to scan this PC engine fan. And pretty much just to start off with, it's binded by staples, as you can see here. So this would definitely have to be an A3 job unless you cut the pages in half, which I try to avoid to do because with staples you can reattach them and make the magazine whole again. So what I'm going to do is take this butter knife and let me tip the camera down. Let's see, I'm going to pry. You go to the page where the staples, you can see them, and I'm going to pry them up with this butter knife and try to keep them kind of straight. And you kind of get a feel for it the more you do it, naturally. And I flip it around, and there's the staples on this side, and I kind of work my way underneath it. And since this magazine is not very thin, these are going to come out pretty easy. Just kind of rock it side to side and pull them right out. Put them off to the side. Now, some of the thicker stuff you may have a harder time with, and yeah, you may just have to try to work it out as best you can. So now the staples are out. And what I do after this generally is I flip the pages back and around, and I make sure there's no extra inserts like attached to the pages because there's almost always usually one, if not more. So far, so good on this one. Really thrilling stuff. But yeah, if you're doing just normal A4 size stuff, oh, here we are. So this is one we've got to peel off. Usually they're stuck on here. I usually just try to pry my finger underneath it very carefully. And just sometimes the glue is pretty tough to get off. I try my hardest not to tear the pages. Again, it's another thing you get the feel for. That one popped off. And see, I don't know if you can see, there's definitely some residue left behind. I just don't sweat it because I don't know really what you can do unless you spend a whole lot of time on it. And the more time you try to peel this away, the more risk you're going to run damaging the page, which we don't want. So I'll put this off the side because we will scan it later. But yeah, if you're helping me and you have like a 7140 Fujitsu, I'll just send you the pages cut already, so you won't even have to mess with this part. So that is it for that. This is ready to be fed in the scanner. I'm going to pause for a minute and get it situated where I can show you that. That before we start the scanning part. So with the Fujitsu scanners, I like to use Scan Snap Manager. I'll go ahead and show you where to get that. Maybe we need to. Here we go. Got a FI series because that's what you were probably given a scan with. 7000 series. You probably either got a 7160 or 7140. It doesn't really matter. I think they both use the same. And then, of course, pick your operating system. And here we go. So, Scan Snap Manager is what I like to use. You can also do the Scandal Pro, but it has a lot of issues. The only thing it's really good for is whenever you're scanning like a very oversized thing, and I think you would need the A3 model to really take advantage of it anyway. But basically, it lets you set parameters to where you can like feed through a giant piece of paper. But again, you're probably not going to run into that. So we're just going to go ahead and get the Scan Step Manager for right now. Download that. And it's going to ask for a serial number of the scanner. So you'll pop that in. Let me look at mine real quick. Oh, good grief. So, okay. Well, I guess I got to pick my model because it won't let me. But basically, you'll put your model in and download that software and install it. And once that's installed, you may have to open it from your start menu, but to get it going. But it'll show up this little green circle right here. And what you do is you right click it and you do your scan button settings. So you want to make sure on the scanning it's set for, I leave it on color always just because I convert to black and white in my work process down the road. 600 DPI. Scanning side, I do simplex because on almost every Fujitsu I've run across, and if yours isn't doing this already, it probably will be, the duplex on the top side will start introducing lines, and even when you clean it, you won't be able to get them out. But for some reason, the bottom sensor seems to be fine. Like, I mean, I've been using this for years, and it's still not showing lines unless there's actually something on the scanning glass. So it's kind of a pain because that means you have to scan through everything twice, but uh, avoiding the lines I think is worth it personally. And then let's see on the options, that's how I have mine set up so you can mimic those. Paper size, you can do automatic detection, and that does a really good job of aligning and cropping the pages, but it does get overly aggressive. So that's the reason why we do the raw scans, because those will capture everything. And if somebody down the road really wants to get a better uncropped image of the page and then, you know, kind of do their own thing with it, they can always do that. So for those, you have these presets right here, but I've also gone through and made my own, and I use them at varying times. And to make those, you just go to custom, and you can add right there, put the dimensions, and you want to capture like the whole page and then a border around it as well. So if you look at my scans and look at the raw zips, you can see what I mean by that. Compression, set it to low, so you get the largest files. There's always still going to be some JPEG compression because these Fujitsus, like, you cannot turn it off. But that's basically it on that side of it. So on our first feed through, we'll do the automatic detection, and we'll switch it back to the other one for the raw later. So I'm gonna hit OK here, and that should be it on that. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video again, and we'll get the camera set up to where I can show you the actual scanning. Okay, I'm gonna try to show this part too. This is kind of trickier to show, but hopefully I can get the point across. So I've got the magazine ready to feed in. The important thing to remember too is to like always feed your pages in the same direction, because otherwise you're going to have to go through and figure out which way you need to rotate them later on in your process. So I try to always remember to do them the same way to simplify it. Again, if you're not doing A3 size scans, which you're probably not going to be, it's going to be a lot easier to do that because obviously the pages are cut. You just feed them in face down, and that's it. But again, I'm just going to show this. So got it aligned in there, and I'm going to hit the scan button to start my scanning. I just kind of keep my hand there, and as pages come out, I flip them around because we're going to have to scan them again because that top duplexer, like I said, doesn't work and introduces lines. Thicker magazines you don't want to feed in all at once. You want to do in chunks because otherwise you'll get a lot of jams and potentially rip pages. So definitely want to be careful with that. And again, a lot of this comes to feel. Like, it's just experience that you figured out. Isn't this fun to watch? Okay. So now we can see that the pages are all flipped around because I flipped them as they came out. So now I'm going to feed them with the spine facing out. Oh, actually, well, hold on. I'm going to stop the video and show you the next step. Okay, so now the scanning is complete for the one side of all those pages, so it's prompting us to let us know. Now, with ScanSnap Manager, if you go over, I think 100 items, it like freaks out and thinks you didn't mean to do that, and it'll ask you like if you want to cancel a job and delete the files. Just tell it no, and it'll keep them. So I'm gonna tell it to finish scanning. It's gonna ask me to save them. I've got it preset where I want them, so I'm gonna hit save. And now we're gonna go to that folder, and there's all my pages. And I go ahead and peek through a few just to make sure I don't have any lines in them. Because if I do, I'm gonna need to redo that page later or rescan it. So these are looking good. Okay, and I'll look one towards the end just to make sure. All right. So now that we have these pages, I have, since again the duplexer kind of messes with the whole process, it makes it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. But I use a software called bulk rename utility. It's free to use. And then I'm going to go to my folder, and you can see all the file names here. So I have these parameters set up to where it removes the last 4 characters of the file name, which is the numbers. And then on the numbering, I change it to mode suffix, and I have it start at 3 because when we scan the other side of the pages, it's going to be our even numbers on the pages. And then I have increment 2 for each one, and it pads at 4. And you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to highlight the pages I want it to rename. And so now it's made like image 2, image 3, image 3, image 5, image 5, image, like, so ScanSnap, whenever we scan in the next side of the pages, will make those 2 and then 4 and 6 and 8, and that way they'll be in the correct order. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to rename. It's going to tell me 20 files are about to be done, so it's done. But if you'll notice, now we have _1s trailing on some of these file names, but all we have to do for that is tell it to replace _1 with blank. You have to uncheck and recheck it, and now we can see that it made the change. So I'm going to tell it to rename those. Boom, there we go. So now we're ready to scan the other side, and it'll put it in the proper order. That's just something you'll have to do. It's a little annoying, but it is what it is. So I'm going to go back to scanning now and show you that. Okay, so again, now that we flip the pages around, looks, not correct, obviously, but the side with the spine facing out, we're going to scan that. Now this side is trickier because of the way it bubbles, so you're going to be more apt for jamming. I would do smaller chunks at a time, so I'm going to break that apart. Set this off to the side. You just got to make sure you keep your stuff in order so you don't get it mixed up. And I'm going to go and feed this through. And same as before, I'm going to flip the pages around. Not having any jams so far, that's good. I tried to pull on that one, so now I gotta reach up there. You kind of can feel it. Be able to catch it in time. With A4 pages, though, you're not going to run into that. Probably silly me even showing you this, but again, I don't know. Might as well do it. grab the others, split it with button. While I'm here, I might as well just show you like the smaller pages that you'd normally be scanning. Like you feed it in face down, upside down, and then you just hit the scan again. It'll pull through the pages, and you flip them just like that. It's a lot easier since you're not having to worry about the pages being bent on the spine and everything. So anyway, just thought I'd show that real quick. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next part of the process. Okay, now we're back to our scans, and since we renamed those images like 1, 3, 5, and whatnot, ScanStat knew as the other images came through to make them 2, 4, 6, and 8. So we've got the full run. It's in proper order now, even though we only had one side of our scanner actually scanning. So now next I'm going to use this other free program called Faststone Image Viewer. And again, you can just download on the internet. And I'm going to go here. I'm going to go ahead and highlight all my pages. And if I right click, I can go to this tools, lossless rotate. And since these are all, they need to be rotated right, I'm going to tell it to do that. And depending on how large the magazine is, it can take a little bit, but this isn't too bad. So this should be done here shortly. Debating showing the next steps I do, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because I'm, whatever. But it's some PowerShell scripts I run to split and arrange the pages in a proper order. And I'm happy to share them. I actually think they're already in the scanning guide. A lot of this information is. I'm just going over it in the video. But yeah, that will basically split all my pages out and align them in the proper order so they're ready to go to be converted to PDF and whatnot. But yeah, for the most part, with your stuff, I mean, you won't have to mess with this other than, no, I think if you feed it face down and in the proper orientation, you shouldn't even have to rotate your pages. They'll be ready to go with the A4 size cut pages. Okay, so it's rotated those for us. And we can see that by going here. And it looks good. I have these PowerShell scripts, like I said. That's pointed to the mag2 folder already. So I'm just going to copy or cut and paste these in the mag2. And the first script I run that I've made is split pages. And it takes the longest. And basically, for this too, you have to have a program called Image Magic installed or it won't work. So there it is right there. You can download this and install it on your computer. And again, this part's in the scanning guide too. Just going over real quick in the video. If you end up doing A3 size stuff. Okay, here we can see it's slowly cutting the pages in half. If you're doing a large magazine, you'll need a lot of computer RAM and even hard drive space because I had an older computer, I think with 8 gigs of RAM or 12, I can't remember, and it would choke on the larger magazines. So I had to break it out into chunks. I managed to buy this computer a couple years ago, and I loaded it up with 32 gigabytes of RAM, and that makes a lot of this easier because you don't run into memory issues, or at least not as easily. You'd have to do something really massive to push that. So if you can afford it, I definitely recommend getting 32 gigabytes of RAM in your machine. Okay, I'm going to delete these double-sided pages because we don't need them anymore. But as you can see, the pages aren't in the correct order. So I have this rename images script, and it will do this. I also have a rename images to script, which does it for pages lined up in that traditional Japanese style where it's kind of backwards from the Western books, how they flip. And that's included out there too in the scanning guide. So you can use that if you run into a book that is scanned in that order. So I'm delete these backwards pages. And voila, we're done here. So now we have all our pages we need in the proper order. When you're scanning an A4 size magazine, this is how you will get them. The only step you'll have to do is that bulk rename thing where you rename the files properly, unless your duplexer still works. So, trying to think what to go over next. We've got these images ready to edit. So let's go ahead and do that. Dang, we don't need black and white in this magazine. Just wanted to show that. These are all color, so they'll all be run the same way. I do like to, on magazines like this with the covers that are more intricate, I like to flatbed scan them, so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. And if you can do that too on the magazines you're sent, that'd be great. Gotta wait for a second for my scanner to warm up. Okay. Okay. Wipe down my scanner glass, my lint-free cloth. Line the page up. And with flatbed scanners, if you push everything completely to the edge, you're going to get stuff cut off because I don't know why they designed scanners that way they did. So I push it up against the edge to get it straight. I pull it back a little bit. And I mean, that can mess up the straightness too, but you can always fix that later in post when we edit the images. Just try to get as straight as you can. So, close the lid. Put a book on top of it to help weigh it down. And I've got it set for 600 because that's what we're scanning our, our pages in at. If it's a heavily damaged cover that you think you might want to touch up later, you can always go higher. But 600 is pretty good for the most part. And like I say, I like to do a little outside the edges because that'll be our raw scan. Okay, got that. Cover off there. That's scanned in a different directory for me, but we're not going to mess with it right this second. We're going to go ahead and get these processing. So I use these preset actions all the time for Photoshop work because it makes your life so much easier. You can just like set it and go. This is one I usually use temp because I alter it all the time. And to make a new one of these in Photoshop, you go right over there to create new action and do that. I'll just call it 2. And right now, as soon as you like create one, it starts recording your action. So I'm going to tell it to stop because I'm not ready yet. You only have to do this once, to set up your initial one. And I'm going to try to find a page that has some good white and black in it. That's not bad. Okay, I like this one. So that's 54. Okay, so I'm gonna hit record on this action now to do our first run through. And the first thing I do is I adjust the levels, and this is just the very subjective part. I try not to get too aggressive with this because every page is different. Some are going to look better than others. Obviously, if you have the time, you want to go through and tweak them one by one, but that's a giant time sink. So unless you're only doing a couple magazines, I don't recommend it. And if you hold down Alt on your keyboard while you scroll the mouse, we can see the pixels that are affected. So this is our black levels. And the part that we're seeing highlighted now is what is being affected and turning black. So we can look at that, and it made it darker. If I go back to the history, go back to open, you can see the difference that makes. It makes it look a lot better. But, oh, I forgot that. Yeah, when you record, it's copying everything, so you delete these actions out. So 56 is really pretty strong. I mean, that is going to cause some issues in a lot of images. So I'm going to back this down. We can see it's kind of starting on the black around 30. So that's probably a good safe level for the black levels. And on the white, you kind of do the same thing. If you can see right there in the center page where all that red and blue is, that's kind of like yellowing that's on a lot of pages naturally. And I want to push the white until that's just about gone. I don't want to go too far with that, because we know these pages should be white, and that'll help make the text nice and clear for the OCR later. So I'm going to say this is probably good for most pages and hit OK. So we've got our levels action recorded now. And our next one, I'm going to go ahead and hit record button again. And you're going to need Flatbed to screener. You can purchase a license for it. Let's see, I'm going to pull that up real quick. And if funds are an issue, let me know. I'm sure we can work towards getting you a license spot. But compare editions, let's see, I haven't looked at this in a while. Tuning the more reduction setting. See, that license is way cheaper than a 75. That's important. We need that. Now it says tuning the more reduction setting. That's the only one I'm concerned about, because whenever I pull it up, you'll generally, yeah, we're going to set it to automatic, but okay, yeah. So I think you can totally get away with just the 15 pounds license, because we're not really going to need that feature. We're not going to need this one. Noise reduction I never really use. Visual measure tools, handy, but not necessary. So you find a part of the page that has a heavy screen on it, and like I say, I usually do automatic on color pages. Now it's saying can't find it. It's just really sporadic how it works. You'll do the same section over and over again, and one time it'll find the screen. Good grief. Why is it? Yeah. I mean, this would work, but I think No, we want to do automatic for our batch command. Wow, I don't know what is going on with this. Of course, it's doing what I'm trying to do the video. There we go. Finally found it. It's done our thing. I'm going to hit OK. And the screening takes a while. And I've still got my action recording. We've done our levels and we've descreened it. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to save the image. And I do 10 quality, progressive, and then hit OK. Saved it, and then I'm going to tell it to close it. So that action now we can run it against our folder, and it will try to process every image with these parameters. So it'll try to level it with the levels we told it, and it'll try to discrete it automatically. I'm going to go ahead and run that through and show you. I'm not going to make you watch the whole process because it could take a while. First, I need to take that image out that I saved. Where is it? Move that to a separate folder because I already did it. So temp2 folder, I'm going to choose that folder. Scans, Fujitsu scans, Mac2. Okay. And by default this isn't on, but make sure include all subfolders is off because yeah, that could cause issues. And we're going to hit OK. And now it's running through our actions, as you can see. Automatically, we don't have to do it manual on each page this way, which is just a huge time and sanity saver. But again, this descreening does take a while, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, and whenever it's done, we'll go back to that step and I'll show you what to do next. Okay, we're back, and that took about 30 minutes to go through all those pages and to screen it. And as you can see, it's popping up this error saying ran into problems. Basically, that's due to it not being able to find the screen whenever it ran the screener. So on these, what I usually do is I'm going to tell the action not to run levels because we do not want it to run levels again. We've already run that step, but we do want it to try to descreen them again. So go to File, Automate Batch, and on source, I change it from folder to open files instead. So that will process these files and try to descreen them one more time. And if it fails, sometimes I'll run it once or twice. If it doesn't find the screen in 2 tries, then you're probably gonna have to manually go in and find it, or it's gonna be a page that doesn't have a screen and you're just not gonna worry about it. You'll just save it as is and move on. So I'll pause the video again real quick and let this run through, and I'll pick it up again whenever it's done. Okay, so it ran through the second time and it knocked out quite a few, so we didn't have to manually do those. So but for these, I'm going to go ahead and knock these out since it's only 3. So filtered screen. And I'm going to scroll up. Let's see if we can get the screen here. It's giving me trouble. So I'm going to turn off automatic. And if I go up here and by the screen's lines inch and hit this box, it will try. And it found the screen because it filled this in. Hit OK. Doesn't save. Okay. Scroll over to picture, try it. There we go. On the screens, if it finds a screen that's like below 130, you don't want to go that far down. 120 probably is the lowest you'd ever want to go because that's really going to start blurring your text. So if your screen's lower than that, I wouldn't descreen it. I would find another part on the page to find a screen on because each image will have its own kind of screen. Or each image on the page may have a different kind of screen, which makes it kind of tough. But like I say, just try to aim for the maybe the bigger one on the page, and go with that. You're not going to get it perfect because there's no way to do multiple screens on a page. So just pick one and go with it. But like I say, don't try to avoid going below 130. 120 at the absolute lowest. So this one wasn't too bad. There wasn't a whole lot of manual pages to the screen, so that was nice. Sometimes you'll have like 10 or 20, so it takes a little bit, but that wasn't bad. And now we have all our pages. I'm going to move that one that I moved out earlier back in the folder. And at this point, you've got all your images ready to go and be made into a PDF or a CBZ file. Since we scanned the cover with our Epson scanner earlier, though, we're going to go ahead and use that real quick. And open that up in Photoshop. First thing I'm going to do is rotate it. And then I'm going to attach my scanner color profile. So if your scanner's been profiled, make sure you do that. Hit OK. And if you don't have your scanner profiled or a good flatbed scanner, just take the cover page that Fujitsu gave you through the scanner. That's fine to use. This is just something I like to do personally to make it a little bit better. And okay, attach the profile. Now I'm going to save this as our raw cover page. I'm going to drop that into a folder. And I'm just going to rename it cover. But I do want to edit it for our actual final magazine upload. So I'm going to go ahead and draw around this. Looks pretty straight. You can always go in with Photoshop tools and try to straighten it yourself if it's not. Pages on magazines are always cut wacky. Like they're not always going to be perfectly straight. So it's okay to shave some of it off because you're never going to get it perfect. I'm going to adjust my levels again. And again, like before, you know, it's just kind of per image. You kind of judge. So there's a black outline starting to show up. That's probably good enough on the black. On the white, all along that right side. I'm going to go kind of aggressive with that because covers are usually pretty yellowed and stained. And the last step is, since I profiled my scanner, to convert it to sRGB with absolute colorimetric. And there we go. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and descreen it. The level thing, just trial and error, experimentation. Just always go back and check your pages, maybe a few, and just see if it looks good. Big key is just try not to get too aggressive, especially early on. I'm going to go ahead and overwrite my cover image from the Fujitsu, since this will look better, since it was dialed in manually. And that's it for that. Now, I'm going to go to that Mag2 folder, and I'm going to highlight all these. And I use Adobe Acrobat to create PDF files with. If you've got something else that you prefer, that's fine too. But this is just what I use. So I've highlighted all the pages and right-clicked it and told them to combine in a PDF. So it's going to start doing that now. Usually during this step of the process, or the process when it's doing the screening, I go ahead and scan in my raw image files because it's going to take 30 minutes anyway. So you might as well get that out of the way. I didn't do it in this case, but just wanted to say that. The more you can do with your downtime, the more time it actually saves you instead of doing this chunk by chunk. But of course, at first when you're doing it, it can be a little overwhelming. You'll get the hang of it with time. So if you need to do it separate stages like we're doing here, that's fine too, of course. let's go ahead. Well, should probably do some black and white pages, show you how to edit those. This is going to be from a different magazine because, again, the one I just scanned didn't have any black and white, but I've got this login magazine right next to me, and it has some black and white we can use. Let me see here. Okay. Now this is almost done. I'll go ahead and get this part started because the OCR process takes a little bit too, similar to the screening in time. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to go up here to Tools, and under Text Recognition, until in this file, mine's already set up, but yeah, you change it to Japanese, and PDF output style searchable image, and you can select those by hitting the Edit button. The deal with this is it will try to go in and auto crop and rotate your pages and straighten them up, and it does a pretty good job generally. Sometimes it totally rotates them wrong though, or crooked though, so we will have to go through at the end and double check our pages to make sure they're correct. And it also does some compression. It's not terribly noticeable, and it will bring the file size down dramatically. So that's okay for a PDF. We make a CBZ file too, which is the full-blown quality images that won't have any compression or be rotated at all or anything. So if somebody wants, absolutely no compression other than what we did in Photoshop, they can always use the CBZ file. But this is a pretty good balance for usability and file size wise. So I'm going to kick this off. Well, okay. Sorry. You don't have to do this, but I usually do. I go ahead and save it before I start my OCR so I don't have to do that step of combining pages again, because with Japanese OCR, sometimes it crashes in the middle of the pages, and then you have to recombine everything again, which is time consuming. And when that happens, we'll see if it happens on this one, but it usually doesn't. You'll have to basically, on your text recognition, tell it to do from page whatever to the page right before it crashes. And then I just skip OCRing on the page that causes it to crash. And usually if you have one in a document, you'll have one or two more after that. So it sucks. You got to kind of watch which page you get stuck on. Luckily that's rare, but just something to keep in mind. So let's kick this off. And as we can see, it's going to start doing the recognition. You'll see the pages start to rotate slightly whenever it's trying to straighten them out. I'm going to go ahead and scan in some black and white pages from a different magazine to show you how I like to edit those. Oops. Jammed. Flip these through real quick. Okay. Yeah, it's a good idea whenever you have a scan. Some scan pages look like, make sure you flip through all of them because some can be stuck together, like this case just there. They just need to be peeled apart. Okay. Here's the black and white pages. Leveling on these is quite a bit different because you can get a lot more aggressive on your levels, especially when you've got pages that are yellowed, which is going to happen a lot with black and white. Some can get very, very yellow, but we can get them dialed in pretty well to get rid of that. Some of my earlier scans, I didn't really know how to do that. I wish I had, because they look a lot worse. Okay, that's good enough. We can show you with this. Let's scoot these into a separate folder. Back through. Okay, so you can use your same action you used before, but I would recommend making a new action because I've done that. You're going to do a step in this where you convert to grayscale, and if you forget to uncheck that whenever you're doing your color images, it's going to convert them to grayscale, which you obviously don't want. You're going to have to rescan them, which is not fun. Okay, stop that from recording. I'm going to open an image with, I like to do photos of people to help me with my levels. So go and record, and we're going to go ahead and adjust the levels and leave it in color for right now. So black, I kind of do it, again, I try not to get too aggressive. You want your text to be black, obviously, but before the text even started turning black, the photo was, so I've got to back off on that. Kind of like the color images, you know, each magazine you do is going to be different. You're just going to have to go in and adjust it best you can. I'm going to go 27. And the important part again is because you'll have all this bleed through right down in here. And I don't know if you can see that in the video, but there's like light brown marks all throughout this. You can do this one of two ways, and you can see which looks better. You can do the holding the Alt key down and scrolling, and we can see the yellow slowly disappearing, and that's turning to white, which is what we want. But it's also starting to, you know, kind of cut into our photo quite a bit. So that looks okay, but what I personally like to do on my white levels, generally, not always, but again, you just gotta kind of judge it. Yellowing usually is heaviest along the edges of the pages. So I'm going to go in here. And so you can even see some bleed through on the black. These pages are so thin. But this will take that out too. I do the white dropper tool right here. And that gets rid of quite a bit of that. I can still see some, especially more I zoom in. There's some blue. Let's zoom out and see how clean that looks. Pretty clean. It didn't seem to wash out our photos too much. Oh, I need to dial that back in. When you set the white point, it resets your black point, and vice versa. So just keep that in mind. Okay. And a lot of times too, whenever you adjust that level, you'll notice a blue tint on your page. That's okay because we're going to convert this to grayscale anyway. Again, I forgot to tell it not to record that part when I went backwards. I'm going to delete that part of the action. And that was our original levels. I don't want that either. Now I'm going to tell it to convert this to grayscale. Boom. So that kind of helps clean up the remaining yellowing and whatnot, bleed through behind the pages. So this looks pretty good. And the other benefit of going to grayscale is it descreens so much faster. So I'm going to go up to the photo and tell it to do. So it detects 133, which is about usual for black and white. Almost all are. If you want to make this part of your action, which I recommend on black and white, because it can detect screens incorrectly, you can go up here. You hit the automatic. It found 133, but it's going to think you want automatic on all the pages because you clicked that. So all you got to do is go up here and just tell it, scroll your arrow keys, and I'm going to tell it 132, sure. And now if we look at our action, it's going to say, it's going to descreen all these pages with 132. So that's what we want. That'll be uniform and nice. And let me hit record. I'll save. file, close. So that's our black and white action. There's our color action. So, you can keep that in mind, rename them however you want. And just for each magazine, just remember, go in and set your levels per magazine because they're going to be different. Just dial it in as best you can. Use kind of the tips I told you and go from there. So then we can run this against those gray images. These, since we told the screen and they're grayscale, you will very rarely have any issues. It should get them all cleanly in one go. And see how much faster this is. I mean, way, way faster. Where a color page takes like, 20, 25 seconds, this is like just a couple. And we can kind of watch it go through these. Drops file size down quite a bit too. Like this is 8.75. And by the time it does it, I bet I'll drop it down to like 2 or 3. And it looks better because it's clear. It's going to OCR better. Yeah. Very nice. And that's it. We're done with the black and white pages. So, like I say, you're going to want to move those in a separate folder than your color to run that action on if you're going to do like the folder part I showed you earlier. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, I'm going to delete these because we don't actually need them. And let's see how our OCR is going. Still going, 54. Like I say, during this part, you could probably do your raw scans or during the screening part in Photoshop. So I'm going to pause the video and get that ready, and I'll show you that step. Okay, it's gone through an OCR, so we're going to go through and double check our pages now and make sure they're aligned correctly. Oh, great. Apparently I didn't catch a line. Oh boy. It looks like it's on every page. Great. Well, all right. Well, I'm going to have to redo this issue. But for the sake of the video, I can go ahead and show you. And that's a lesson on why you try to, check real carefully on your scanned images. That line's really thin and hard to see, though. But I'm a psycho perfectionist, so I'll probably overdo it. I like to zoom out, too, on the pages because it makes it kind of easier to spot crookedness. And you can kind of make sure your pages are in proper order. Something else to do. I mean, they should be if you did it in order, but I have screwed up sometimes where I flipped a page wrong and then didn't catch it. So that's always fun to discover. Oh, that line. Dang. How did I not catch that? These are all straight so far. Like I say, most of the time they are, but you just have to kind of watch closely. And I mean, I still miss pages every once in a while. But if you go through once, you'll probably catch them 95% of the time. It's always, only the ones that are like slightly off slant that are funky and tougher to catch sometimes. Okay, that looks pretty good. If you do have a page you need to rotate, like if it's just a 90-degree angle, you can go over here and right click it and tell it to rotate the page and tell it whichever direction. Just make sure you tell it selection on the page ran. You don't want to do all of them. And if it's just totally crooked where 90-degree rotation won't fix it, you need to replace the page and just not worry about OCRing it. So you'd replace it and browse to your scans folder, change it to JPEG so it'll see the files, and then pick the page, hit open, and tell it yes to replace it. So, but this one is good to go. So let's go ahead and save it again. And looks like it saved it here. So that's the folder I usually work out of. And so you'll rename it to whatever it's supposed to be. PC Engine and 1999. And we'll take our files. I use 7-zip, and then I just tell it, add it to a zip file. We can delete these now because they're done. And to make a CBZ file, all you do is take a zip file, change the extension to CBZ. Voila. Let's refresh it. So we've got our PDF, we've got our CBZ file, but we still need our raw scan. So we're going to do that now. And again, I have custom templates I've already made that I know, will scan the whole page, and then also a little border, long A3. I mean, you're welcome to copy these or ask me for dimensions on, the stuff I use. And just like I showed before, I feed the pages through exactly the same way. It's just this time it's going to make them much larger. So I'll do it for you to show you, and I'll go ahead and stop the video so you don't have to watch the whole process again. And I made sure to clean the scanner since that line was on there. Probably gonna have to redo those others, which sucks, but gotta do it. Okay, so you can see here, this is how our scans are coming through. There's a, this big border overlap, which is what we want for our raws because it's going to be the full page. Hopefully this video hasn't run you off. We're almost done, but this process is a lot of work, but I'm always pretty happy with the results for the most part. Ideally, you go through each page one by one and level them, and you can do them with a flatbed. But if you're going to be doing multiple magazines, that's just not really feasible or a good use of your time, in my opinion. It's better to get 20 magazines out in pretty good quality versus 2 magazines in the same amount of time in slightly better quality. Well, that's just me. So again, we're going to need to go through and rename these files like we did the first round because we still want them properly ordered, even if they are just our raws. Already got my stuff set up, so I can just highlight them, go in, hit rename, boom. Uncheck that to get rid of the _1, boom. And now we'll scan the other side. We're going to include the cover, like I said earlier, with the IT8 profile attached that I did for my flatbed. Oh, and we got a problem. So it pulled through 2 pages. So I'm going to tell it to discard that. It's very important when you get a jam to, just make sure you've got discard picked if you're going to feed the page through again, which I would recommend, because otherwise your pages are going to get out of order because you have a doubled up image and it just throws everything off to where it can be a nightmare to go through and rename them. You almost want to just start from scratch if that happens, honestly. It can be maddening to fix. The double pull-throughs seem to happen a lot more with the spine facing outwards. But again, with A4, you're not going to run into that very often, if hardly ever. Because your page is already separated and easy to feed through. Almost done. Fun fact, this is actually the last PC Engine fan I need to scan. I still have to edit the Darius issue, but yeah, I'll get that done soon. Okay, again, we'll go through and look at the pages and make sure there's no lines. There's again. What is going on? So there's obviously something on my scanner. I just wiped it off, but apparently we have to take some glass cleaner to it. Anyway, I'm not have to redo all this. I'll do it on my own time, but let me just show you what you do. So we're gonna take all those raw images and the cover. Oh, forgot to scan that card earlier that we pulled from the page. So let me do that real quick. I like to include that with my raw scans. Okay, I'm gonna go and rename those two. I like to call them inserts. You don't have to do that, just somehow do it personally. So we're gonna highlight those and get our cover and zip them all together. And that's it. Now we can delete those. And I'm gonna name it raw scans. And that's it. We've got our files now. And we can upload these to, like I like to always do it again, the Internet Archive is what I recommend. And then keeping your own copies yourself. You know, just kind of use proper tagging and descriptions and whatnot. That always helps, you know, make your stuff searchable on the Internet Archive. But that is really it. I'm trying to think of anything else we should cover. I think that's all. The biggest thing really is just, you know, learning the leveling, trying not to get too aggressive with it, but also making sure, you know, you're getting rid of the white, yellowing, and bleed through on your pages. I mean, that's the thing that probably takes the most practice with doing. But other than that, I think this is all you're going to need to know. If you ever have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask me any of this. And I'm sure I didn't explain everything perfectly, so I'm sure this video is going to be confusing. But anyway, this is the start. It kind of shows you my process, and hopefully this is helpful. Thanks for watching.